Hello and welcome. You're with the news today, Monday night. This is your destination as we start another week on the news today. News without the noise and the big story that's blowing across the world. The blowback in the Islamic world over remarks made by a former BJP spokesperson on Prophet or a suspended BJP spokesperson. The big question also, how does one therefore repair India's global image at a time like this? That's what we're going to raise. We're going to have diplomats, politicians joining us on the news today. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9 tonight. The Arab world unites in condemning India over BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma's Prophet Muhammad slanderous remark. India rejects the OIC statement, calls its fury unwarranted and narrow-minded. Indonesia, UAE, Jordan join in the protest. Mumbai police may summon the suspended BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma. Action likely after an FIR was registered against her by a complaint by the Raza Academy in Mumbai. UP police releases pictures of 40 riot accused days after the communal clashes in Kanpur. Promises anonymity to those tipping off information on the accused. The Mumbai police claim to have uncovered a plot to kill actor Salman Khan after he receives a threat letter saying, "Aapka Musa wala kar denge," Bishnoi gang under the scanner. New CCTV video of the Musewala murder in Punjab. Man took selfie with the singer minutes before tipping off gangsters who shot him. India Today unmasks all the murder suspects. A khaki knicker Nataka over textbooks in Karnataka. After Siddaramaiah threatens to burn RSS shorts, Union Minister Prahlad Joshi hits back. Says Congress knickers are already loose and torn. Contagious infection, norovirus in Kerala. Health authorities confirm 2 positive cases in children. Virus identical to diarrhea causing rotavirus. Britain's governing Conservatives to hold a no-confidence vote in Prime Minister Boris Johnson that could oust him. This after Partygate exposed Johnson's breaking COVID rules during the lockdown. And billionaire Elon Musk threatens to walk away from $44 billion Twitter deal if not provided with data on fake accounts. Says his information rights are being violated. But first to the breaking news that's coming in. More and more Islamic countries have now joined in to express their anger over the suspended BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma's comments on the Prophet. Now Jordan, United Arab Emirates and Indonesia are the latest nations to speak out and condemn what they are saying are unacceptable statements made by a ruling party spokesperson. The United Arab Emirates has expressed its denunciation and rejection of the insults of the Prophet Muhammad. The UAE underscored the need to respect religious symbols, not violate them, as well as confront hate speech and violence. Remember, several countries yesterday had begun with Qatar starting it off, questioning the manner in which the BJP spokesperson had made those statements. Nupur Sharma was suspended last night. Joining me now are Geeta Mohan and Bobby Naqvi. Bobby Naqvi is the former editor of Gulf News in Dubai. Geeta Mohan is our diplomatic editor. Appreciate both of you joining us. Let's get a sense from both of you as to what's happening. Geeta, to you first. Is the Indian government worried that country after country, even Indonesia, Jordan, all coming together on this issue? How does India intend to respond? Because they've responded angrily to the Organization of Islamic Countries, calling them narrow-minded, but has been very careful in their remarks to the Qatars and the UAEs and the Saudi Arabias.
Well, absolutely right, Rajdeep. When it comes to the fact that yes, they are concerned that countries are coming out and condemning this, but they go into the room, I'm talking about the bilaterals, they go into the room with the confidence of saying that this is not the view of the government of India and that action has been taken. Now, this is bilateral. It all began with, of course, Qatar, given that the vice president's visit was underway when this entire controversy broke, and Qatar could not have kept quiet, and that's why they summoned Once the response was seen by other Muslim nations, it was impossible for them not to have reacted. And that's why we're seeing a lot of reactions coming in. There are only two statements, Rajdeep, where government of India has come out with a strong condemnation and a rebuttal. That is to do with Pakistan and OIC. One, because both the statements went beyond the ambit of this particular incident. They started listing out all other incidents or allegations of the past. And is the reason why the Indian administration responded in the manner in which they did. But yes, there is damage control. That is the administration and the diplomatic corps is under in the damage control mode, where most of the ambassadors who've been summoned have been explaining the position of the Indian government, and they are continuing to do so through the foreign ministry and the embassies.
Interesting. So a bilateral attempt bilaterally to reduce the damage when it comes to certain countries while taking a strong stand against OIC and Pakistan. Bobby Naqvi, former editor, Gulf News, senior journalist, joins me. Bobby, how do you explain the kind of reaction that we've seen? Did it start, as Geeta says, with what Qatar did, and then it spread across the Islamic nations because they had no option?
Rajdeep, India in this part of the world is, always known for some very nice reasons. For example, hardworking people, blue-collar workers, CEOs, directors, enterprising businessmen. It's known for Bollywood. It's known for culture. It's known for food. I mean, you name anything Indian, and it's available on the street here, on the Arab street. So obviously, what has happened in the last 2 days has kind of slightly changed the narrative, and people are talking about India for something which we may not like.
Is it people or is it governments? Is it people or governments? What explains the manner that governments with whom India has tried to build good relations are reacting so angrily? Is it governments or people, Bobby?
Yeah, so there are a number of reasons for this, Rajdeep. The way the governments here have reacted. It began from Qatar and then Kuwait and then Saudi Arabia, and now UAE and Oman also joined in. See, one is the chatter which has been going on social media for the last 3-4 days. Obviously, and there are some very prominent people who are talking about it. Right from the Grand Mufti of Oman, Dr. Ahmad Al-Khalili. He's a prominent figure. He issued a very strong statement, and that's kind of unusual to issue a detailed statement on this issue and calling other Muslim nations to condemn it. That's one. And secondly, there are lots of people also, Arabic personalities, writers, columnists. They have also spoken about this particular issue. See, what happens, Rajdeep, is that, even if something is being said in Hindi language, today it quickly gets translated and, shared on social media in terms of stickers, etc. So people do find out that something is being said and something so nasty is being said. And that is why there was a lot of anger. And I think the governments actually reacted to the sentiment on social media.
Interesting what you're saying, that the governments have reacted to the sentiments, the anger being expressed in a way on social media, and therefore have taken a very strong stand, at least publicly, in their statements. Bobby Naqvi, Geeta Mohan, joining me right at the very top here on the news today. Appreciate both of you joining me and giving us the latest updates. That is really our top story today, because the BJP, remember, yesterday suspended its spokesperson Nupur Sharma over her remarks on Prophet Muhammad during a TV debate. The move came after the Islamic countries jumped in and condemned the statement of the BJP spokesperson, demanded an explanation for her. But those remarks have now spread far and wide, and they've triggered widespread protest in the Islamic world. In some instances, India has hit back, as I said, especially against the OIC and Pakistan. It's our top story tonight.
Maybe you want to just mention a sedition case on those offering a Jummah namaz.
Heated debates over faith are par for the course for Indian television channels. Last week, BJP leader Nupur Sharma and Naveen Jindal made controversial remarks on Prophet Muhammad on TV and social media, sparking global outrage. The BJP later suspended Nupur Sharma and expelled Naveen Jindal, but the damage control came late. By then, many Islamic countries had already reacted. Qatar, Kuwait and Pakistan summoned Indian envoys while Saudi Arabia, Iran, Afghanistan and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation issued statements. The OIC is the latest to jump in. It has condemned denigration of prophet by an official of India's ruling party. It claimed Islam is being defamed in India and Muslims are being targeted. The OIC in its statement cited hijab ban on campus, bulldozer action and alleged violence is increasing against the community. The MEA reacted strongly to the OIC, calling the statement unwarranted and narrow-minded. The government said India accords highest respect to all religions. It is said the offensive tweets and comments were made by individuals and the government did not share these views. India urged OIC to stop pursuing communal approach and show respect to all faiths and religions. It is in the reaction from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait that would trouble the Narendra Modi government, which has cultivated good ties with the West Asian nations. It was all the more embarrassing as the row broke out when Vice President Venkaiah Naidu was in Qatar on a state visit. India conveyed to these countries that the views expressed are of fringe elements. New Delhi has said strong action has been taken against those who express these views.
These kind of statements are highly irresponsible, and they must be dealt with severely. The reaction from those countries is logical.
Offering namaz, especially...
The controversy has sparked a political war in India as well.
इस स्पोक्सपर्सन को अरेस्ट करना चाहिए, उनको जेल को जाना चाहिए, उनके ऊपर जो एफआईआर रजिस्टर किए, ये गवर्नमेंट के इंसाफ का तकाजा है. सिर्फ आप लेटर लिख कर दे देंगे कि आपने पार्टी का पोजीशन ये था, 10 दिन के बाद आपको ये ख्याल आया कि आपके व्यूज पार्टी के पोजीशन से कॉन्ट्री हैं. 10 दिन तक आप सो रहे थे क्या? हमारी तकलीफ आप महसूस नहीं करेंगे.
सच बोलने की सजा ही तो नुपुर शर्मा को, साध्वी प्राची को, जाने कितने लोगों को मिल रही है. ये सच का ही तो परिणाम है. लेकिन इनको जरा गिरफ्तार करें ना. बार बार चीख चीख करके, पानी पी पी करके हिंदुस्तानियों को गाली देता है ओवैसी, उसको क्यों गिरफ्तार नहीं कर रही सरकार?
The unsavory controversy has put the BJP in an awkward position. The party all of a sudden finds itself under the scanner on the global stage. The question now is, will the party do a course correction on alleged hate speech? Bureau Report, India Today.
So let's raise the big questions. I'm going to divide this by first talking to two people who in a way have dealt with both Mr. Modi and diplomacy in different guides. Has India's global image taken a beating? What will it take for the government to course correct? Polarization, politics at the heart of the row? The questions first to Salman Khurshid, former Minister for External Affairs and Congress leader, and Zafar Sareshwala, activist, businessman close to Narendra Modi over the years. Appreciate both of you joining us. Salman Khurshid, your first reactions. Do you believe that the reaction of the Islamic world has been overboard, or did India get this horribly wrong? If we had acted much earlier rather than 10 days later, things could have been sorted out.
I really regret that something like this has happened. People on such a good path with the Arab countries and indeed with many other countries. And that for something like this to have come in between is really tragic. I think that there was inability or reluctance to understand.
Mr. Khurshid, give us a minute. We are just trying to get your audio right. There's a little bit of disturbance, but give us a minute. We'll try and get that right. Meanwhile, Zafar Sareshwala, you want to respond to that same question. Could this have been, if the government of India, if the Modi government had acted on day one, broken its silence, this could have been resolved more easily? Do you believe that the government dilly-dally, delayed 10 days, gave the opportunity in a way to critics of this government to say that this government doesn't act against hate speech?
Rajdeep, I was in two places in last 1 week. I was in Russia, where the Russian government had hosted economic summit with the OIC countries. It was in the city of Kazan. I was there, and I was also in Moscow just a week back. And although this Nupur Sharma thing had not come up, but because I was the only one, or there were one or two more people from India. The only question there raised to me was what's happening in India. Because it's not Nupur Sharma, which is something happened now. Since last so many days, we are seeing, on the TV, things are happening. People were questioning me that. Because I'll tell you why. That with Mr. Modi's ascension, India's position had taken a leapfrog across the world, even in the OIC countries, and this summit happening in the backdrop of war. And there were contingent from 72 countries, heads of state from 58 countries were there. I was there on the invitation of the Tataristan president. Even then, people were wondering, and I met a lot of
No, what were they wondering? No, what were they asking? What were they asking?
Yes. Rajdeep, a very important person in Moscow, he heads one of the largest pharmaceutical companies of India. He heads Moscow and Nordic nation, I'm not naming. Once he said that, मैं तो आपको देखता था, हम लोग तो मोदी साहब के सपोर्टर हैं. जफर भाई, ये क्या हो रहा है? ये हिंदुस्तान में क्या हो रहा है? A non-Muslim Hindu living there. Same questions were asked to me by a lot of people from Arab nations, much before this Nupur Sharma thing happened. When I came to Dubai and Abu Dhabi, after that, again, this was the question raised by non-Muslim Hindus. Because Rajdeep, in the top positions in UAE, in the investment banking industry, that's my field, most of the top positions are held by Indian Hindus. And they were asking me कि यार ये हिंदुस्तान में क्या हो रहा है?
नहीं, आप कह रहे हैं हिंदुस्तान में क्या हो रहा है? आपका रिस्पांस क्या था? मैंने आपको पूछा, if the Modi government had broken its silence on day one, if Nupur Sharma had been acted against in some way, made to give an apology on day one rather than procrastinating on 10 days, what would have happened? Give me your answer. What did you say when people said ये देश में क्या हो रहा है?
हाँ, बिल्कुल. यानी ये वो लोग हैं, राजदीप, इसलिए मुझे ऐड करना है. ये वो लोग हैं जो भारतीय जनता पार्टी के सपोर्टर हैं, दुबई और अबू धाबी में. वो कहते थे कि क्या हो रहा है, तो यस, बिल्कुल. और ये मैं वहीं था और ये नुपुर शर्मा की चीज हुई. उसके बाद तो मेरा लोगों के सामने जाना मुश्किल हो गया था.
You're saying?
I had no answer कि हो क्या रहा है. और सबसे खतरनाक जो था वो ये नवीन जिंदल था. यानी राजदीप, people were showing me his tweets कि यार forget about abusing the prophet. एक पार्टी का, बीजेपी का प्रेसिडेंट दिल्ली का जिस किस्म की लैंग्वेज इस्तेमाल कर रहा था, इसका कोई जवाब?
No, he's not the BJP Delhi president. Naveen Jindal is a functionary in the Delhi BJP.
He's an important functionary.
No, government says he's a fringe figure. The BJP says he's a fringe figure. Government says these are fringe figures.
And not only that, दूसरे बहुत सारे नाम मैं नहीं गिनाता. उनके ट्वीट मुझे वहां लोग दिखा रहे थे, दुबई, अबू धाबी में. और ये मामूली लोग नहीं, जो बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट हैं. और मैं आपको एक बात बताता हूं, क्या लोगों को लड़ रहा था.
In English, please.
Because I have been going to these countries for almost more than 30 years.
Right.
I had seen how we were viewed before. And you have to give credit or marks to Mr. Modi because he had taken the position, and with his ascension after 2014, India had come to a position, or I would say coming of age, because earlier we had oil trade and these kind of things. People investing in Indian companies had never happened. The kind of amount which has come in last 6-7 years.
Okay.
And
yes.
These people, the Nupur Sharmas of the world, have hit Mr. Modi and nobody else.
Okay.
Because he is responsible to take India's position to this level. Even in OIC countries, when I was there,
you made that point. Let me turn to Salman Khurshid. Salman Khurshid, you want to respond? Zafar Sareshwala says that, look, Mr. Modi had taken this country's position to a high level, but even in the Gulf countries, we were building relations with UAE, Saudi Arabia, signing bilateral agreements. Along comes this instance, and now you've got Islamic countries, in a way, some would say ganging up, others will say just expressing their anger. How do you see it? Do you believe that if the government had acted on day one, this could have been contained?
Well, I think, of course, that's what was necessary, and that's what would have happened. I just believe that this has come because of a fundamental misunderstanding about the attitude and sentiments of
Muslims in the world for the Prophet Islam. I mean, I think
that there is a lack of understanding of what the significance of the Prophet is to Muslims. And if this had been understood and appropriately responded to quickly, I do believe that this matter could have been taken care of considerably.
But Salman Khurshid, there will be those, sorry to interject, there will be those who will say, look, Nupur Sharma, according to the government, is a fringe element. She does not represent the government of India. She doesn't represent India.
Not get into this. This is just no. I know, but this will make things worse. If these are the kind of arguments we're going to put to the world, we will become the laughing stock. Please, whatever she is, she represents the government of the day to the political party that has brought about this government. Be that as it may, whoever she wants, I think there should be no explanation, just a categorical apology and put an end to this matter. This is not something that should invite further debate. This is something that should be brought to an end quickly and with as much sincerity and honesty as possible. That's my opinion.
What more could Salman Khurshid, what more could the government have done? The government could turn around and say, look, we've got the BJP to suspend her. We've issued statements committing ourselves to our pluralistic, secular beliefs, that we believe all religions are to be treated equal. There are those who are saying that we've responded angrily to the Organization of Islamic Countries, calling them narrow-minded and communal.
Rajdeep, this is no time for getting angry. You have to show a sense of sensitivity and understanding, and then to tell the world that these are fringe elements. Come on, even we don't accept that explanation. To something wrong, if it is wrong, we secondary the person and we believe it. We do not want to hurt anyone. This is being said. Let it be emphasized. Don't give explanations about who did it and who is responsible.
So what? No. So what more would you expect the government of India to do? Let's be very clear. What more do you expect them to do?
Listen, I believe this is no time to react to anyone. Even if somebody is, for our point of view or the government's point of view, is speaking out of turn. So long as we take the attention away from the derogatory statements that were made that should never have been made and connect this matter, not by arguing against which people are taking. We must not be clever and say to the fringe elements, just put an end to it. It is important both for India and for the world. It is important to Muslims and for Hindu-Muslim solidarity that this must be put to an end as quickly as possible.
Okay, you're saying the answer is not to respond angrily, but just put an end to it. Zafar Sareshwala, do you believe that the Modi government is genuine when its reach out takes place? You mentioned how you believe that the government's stock has risen in the Arab world. Are the people willing to now make a distinction there between the Modi government and the BJP or those who are seen as the Hindutva hotheads and the government of India, or somewhere down the line they will now say that, look, there is no difference. This double track approach will no longer work?
No, Rajdeep, even now, people look at Mr. Modi and his government differently and the BJP differently still. So I think now still there is a time, and this whole Hindu-Muslim divide which is happening, and more it's happening on the television screens every day. I think this needs to stop, and the government of India needs to intervene and stop this. And maybe again, this whole...
So no more silence. No, in the past, Mr. Modi has been silent. In the past, the belief is when you have people within his government, Ramzade, Haramzade, comments made by people who are in government, the accusation is the government doesn't act strongly enough, doesn't speak out early enough. You believe that's a lesson that's been learnt. Am I correct?
Yeah, in fact, this removing of both these people, Nupur and this Naveen, has given some semblance that yes, government is acting, but they need to do more.
Okay, let me leave it there. Zafar Sareshwala, Salman Khurshid joining me. Let's widen this. Why does West Asia matter to India? Remember, everyone knows a huge part of our oil needs are met by imports from the Gulf. The figure, in fact, even now is as high as 60%. Here is another reason. The highest remittances globally come to India thanks to its diaspora. An RBI survey in 2018 said the most amount of money through remittances came from the UAE at 26.9%, US came second at 22.9%, Saudi Arabia next at 11.6%, then Qatar 6.5%, Kuwait 5.5%, Oman 3%, then finally the United Kingdom. Of the top 7 countries from where remittances came, 5 were from Gulf nations. So that gives you a sense of the economic costs involved in keeping this relationship going. What are the diplomatic costs? Joining me now, KC Singh, former Secretary MEA. He served in that region. Vivek Kaju, former Secretary MEA. He served in Afghanistan, which has also come out strongly against India today. Gentlemen, let's get each of you. KC Singh, your first remarks. Do you believe that the diplomats are being made to do the damage control for the manner in which our politicians tend to shoot off the hip and make statements that are interpreted as hate speech and blasphemy and worse?
Rajdeep, the problem is deeper than that. I've been writing for some years now, saying you cannot put your domestic politics in one silo and your foreign policy in another. It will carry you only so far, and a stage will come when the conflict will occur. You can't have a majoritarian Muslim baiting agenda at home and go hugging the rulers of these countries and think they'll look the other way. They will mostly they'll look after their interests. Emiratis are interested in weaning you away from Iran. Saudis are interested in doing the same. But when it comes to an issue, I think this is the Salman Rushdie moment. This is not a normal baiting of Muslims in India. It's gone to the religion itself. It's gone to the Prophet. So like in case of Salman Rushdie, once it reaches that level, now it's a religious issue. It is not a diplomatic or political issue. And therefore what happens is it hits the masses. Don't forget, in 1980, over Salman Rushdie's book, a mob in Pakistan overran the American embassy. And even the military stood by and the police stood by, couldn't save them. So therefore, when it reaches the masses, even the rulers in highly autocratic countries will be forced to act. And one last point, where did it begin? It began with Qatar. You see the differences which are there in GCC. You have UAE and Saudis aligned on one side. Qataris have been leaning towards the Iranians, they share a gas field. And Kuwaitis have largely been with them. Bahrain is with the Saudis and the Omanis are largely neutral. Now, once Qataris opened the flank, there's no way Saudis and the Emiratis keep quiet. The reaction came very late and is relatively mild compared to what the Qataris did. But then it goes on to Iran, it goes on to Taliban, it'll go on to Indonesia. You see, now the entire Islamic Ummah and the Islamic countries, the regimes feel that they have to take a stand. And therefore, this was bound to happen when you allow. Let me ask a simple question on the fringe. When the fringe comes to your channel, do they come as the fringe? They come to speak on behalf of BJP, not BJP, the government. They are always nightly fighting and defending the government. So the fringe has been spokesman for the government. You don't get government spokesmen on your channels.
No.
If they are the fringe,
I take your point, Mr. KC Singh. I just want
of top leaders follow them.
Sure, I just want to make the point. We've asked the so-called fringe to come on the show. The BJP spokespersons are not even coming because perhaps they're too embarrassed to defend themselves on this issue. I've also tried to have a haircut, which was a bit of a fringe haircut in my own way. But Vivek Kaju, more seriously, do you believe that the Arab countries their governments are under pressure because, as Bobby Naqvi was pointing out of Gulf News, there was pressure from below. There were lots of people on social media angry over these remarks on the Prophet. Did we underestimate the scale of Arab anger simply because we seem to have a good relationship with their leaderships, forgot that the masses out there will get angry when you make a statement on the Prophet?
Rajdeep, the fact is that whatever may be the differences in the Islamic world, and they are deep and abiding, there is one issue on which all Muslims have a common feeling and they all unite. and that is on reverence for the Prophet Muhammad. So if there is a perception that the Prophet has been insulted, then it evoked almost atavistic feeling among our all Muslims. Now, that is something that I do believe that should have been understood, because if I know correctly, Nupur Sharma's remarks came on the 26th of May. On the 30th of May, the Vice President went out on his travels and he was to reach Qatar on June 4th. Now, the question that I've been asking is that once this matter reached the social media, it was inevitable that it would inflame passions in the Muslim world and, of course, in the Gulf countries. And since the Vice President was traveling there, what was the Minister of External Affairs doing? Because I do not, Casey can correct me if I'm wrong, but I, in my diplomatic experience, do not remember a situation when the Vice President is on a visit, on an official visit, or whatever nature this visit became, in Qatar, that the Foreign Office of that country calls in the Indian ambassador and issues a statement asking for a public apology.
No, are you saying that we should have acted? No, are you saying that therefore, Mr. Kaju, we should have acted preemptively? That on day one after this statement and that it went viral on social media, the government of India should have acted, the Minister of External Affairs should have acted. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that I'm in fact questioning in my mind what was the Minister of External Affairs doing. I mean, he knew the Vice President is traveling there. What was his response? And I'm sure he was being informed of that this is the reaction which is building up. So that is one point. The second point, which is a more wider, is that, and you mentioned economic interests, etc., that India has in the Gulf. Of course, India has deep economic interests. There are remittances, there are energy supplies, there's trade. But let us not forget that there is a mutuality of interests. It is not one side. The Gulf too has deep interests in India. We are major purchasers of their oil. And they need the labor, Indian labor. So it is not one-sided. Therefore, my last point. Therefore, this is a time when wiser heads must come in, both from India and the Gulf, and this incident must be put behind us. And the government has started a process by the ruling party issuing a statement by taking action against Nupur Sharma and Jindal. And now is the time when we should, take this process forward, have a quiet engagement if necessary, and put an end to this. And I do believe that the governments, unlike, Pakistan apart, governments of the mature countries would want that to take place.
Let me ask you, KC Singh, in conclusion, who do you hold therefore responsible? The suggestion from what Mr. Kaju is saying is that you've also got to look at our diplomacy that perhaps reacted too late. You've also got to, of course, look at the silence of the political class that now the government calls them fringe elements. Do you believe that's enough, calling these elements fringe, now doing this quiet backdoor negotiations? Will that be enough, given, as Mr. Kaju is saying, the kind of mutual interest that exists between the Gulf and India, between the Islamic world and India today? Or will this continue to haunt the relationship for a while?
Rajdeep, for the last 4 or 5 months, particularly since the UP election or just before that, you've had people openly ask for killing of Muslims, for taking armed action against them, for various kinds of things. So, there was a degree of discomfort, which your earlier sympathizer of BJP said discomfort was already there. There was only a spark that was needed. And I think what the fringe did was, when the fringe are urged on and you use them and you think it's helping you with your divisive politics, then the fringe goes overboard. They don't know any limit. The youngsters speak some English, but but they don't understand religion or history or the sensitivities of the world. So they had it coming. As I said, you cannot put your domestic politics in one silo and keep doing what you want here. And you think you can present the statesman image abroad. You see, that barrier is gone. That's broken.
Right.
To repair it, I think the Prime Minister has to take charge. He has to shut down all these shops and all this rhetoric. And unless it's coming from him, we haven't heard from him. Whenever these things have come up, we've not heard him. He has to come out and put a stop to it. And I'm sure if he does, the countries will understand. They're looking for a signal from him.
Okay.
They're not going to buy this argument, this BJP and it's not the government. Well, BJP is the government and he's the BJP as far as the world is concerned.
Okay, let me, those are very strong words. I think both of you are sending out as seasoned diplomats. Hopefully someone out there will listen. Mr. Kaju, I just have 30 seconds. If you were to give one piece of advice, therefore, to this government, what would it be, given how it's gone horribly wrong?
Look, there is a difference between Muslim minorities and when it comes to the Prophet. And therefore, I do think that the ruling dispensation needs to inform their spokespersons and members of their party about sensitivities of different religions, including Islam. Equally, I think as far as India is concerned and the wider world, there has to be a greater sensitivity about Indian or what is now commonly called Indic religions and our sensitivities. And that is why I'm suggesting a process of dialogue that is needed.
Okay.
Because after all, my last point, after all, there has been a movement in the UAE which has shown sagacity, something that was unbelievable. I served in the UAE between 79 and 82 largely. 1979-82, and I could not imagine that there would come a time when the ruler of Abu Dhabi would give land for temples and gurudwaras, etc. But he has. So there has been a movement. That movement must be taken forward through a process of dialogue, and of course, comments on the Prophet or any other personality which is revered of any religion must stop in the daily crossfire that takes place on our television.
Let's leave it there. Vivek Karju, KC Singh, two very sensible voices from the world of diplomacy, sending out strong messages in a way without raising their voice, which is perhaps the way to do it. I appreciate you joining us. Hopefully someone out there is listening to you. Let's carry on. And let's take this debate a step forward. Joining me now is the Member of Parliament, Senior Leader, Congress, former Under Secretary General Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Tharoor, appreciate your joining us on the show. Your sense as you're seeing this playing out in West Asia, across the Islamic world, how do you see this play out? Do you hold the Indian government squarely responsible for what has happened, or do you believe that the overall ecosystem is now such that there are competitive intolerances all across the world?
Well, let me put it very bluntly. I hold the ruling party responsible. The government of India should be larger than the political interests of the ruling party. And I don't think, for example, that my old friends in the Ministry of External Affairs are culpable of this kind of language. They know exactly what to do in their efforts to cultivate good relations with the rest of the world, including the Islamic world. In fact, the Modi government had reason to be reasonably proud, Rajdeep, of the way in which they had strengthened relations, particularly with key Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. But what has happened now is a colossal setback, because they have operated on the slightly silly assumption that what is said in India stays in India. It doesn't work that way. That what is said in India, the polarization that seems to serve the political interests of the BJP, that is very much heard around the world. We already had a couple of unpleasant incidents in 2019 when there was a bit of a backlash in the Gulf countries. It was very quickly contained, and certainly it wasn't as grievous as an insult to the Prophet Muhammad. But today, what we are seeing is that the specific political tactic of the ruling party, which is indeed to demonize the Muslim community, to rake up issues of past history and so on, in order to be able to keep the pot boiling and perhaps in the process attract Hindu votes, especially in northern India. This tactic inevitably has had international repercussions. Already in my travels to the Gulf, I'd been hearing from very prominent leaders who didn't want to make a fuss publicly, but privately they were saying things like, we want to be your friends, don't make it difficult for us.
No, but Dr. Tharoor, since you mentioned the Gulf, there will be those who will say that these are the same nations that at times don't respect minority rights. I can't be a citizen, for example, in Saudi Arabia. So there are countries there which are seen not to respect minority rights, are now going to use this to lecture Indians. My point is, Nupur Sharma does not represent all of us Indians either.
Correct, but minority rights is not the issue here. The issue is a level of hate speech which is already against our laws in our country. You are not supposed to be able to say things that seriously wound other sections of our society. And of course, though there's a specific law on scheduled castes and tribes, and you can't say anything that can be insulting to them, there is also a law going back to the 1920s that makes it illegal to defame or insult other religions, any religion, not just Islam. And therefore, the fact remains that what was happening in this, as you call, competitive polarization, I would say the competition was only with themselves, because no other parties are playing this game. It is entirely within the BJP and the ruling party that you're seeing all this demonization of another community. That with this going on, they were actually in violation of national laws, but no one was stopping them, no one was prosecuting them. The authorities were turning a blind eye. And we've heard other examples of hate speech within our domestic politics that, because they had no international resonance, never came back to bite the government on the foot. But finally, you had one statement which clearly was beyond the pale for Muslims around the world to take. But what about Tariq anyway, saying, what about those countries? We are not those countries. We are a democracy, as the statement by the Kuwaiti minister very correctly pointed out. India used to have a very good reputation around the world as a country that celebrates diversity and welcomes people of all faiths. What happened to that India? I mean, this is the concern that many of our friends have been expressing quietly, and now finally they've expressed it publicly.
No, but as you yourself said at the very outset, the Modi government has invested a lot of its political capital in building relations with countries in the Gulf and in West Asia. Are you saying that all of that is compromised by one statement? Surely our relationship does not stand on such weak foundations.
No, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that this has been an extremely important wake-up call for the government, that our domestic rhetoric could seriously undermine a relationship that they've invested a lot of time and trouble to cultivate and strengthen, a relationship that affects trade relations, our energy security, our geopolitical security, our counter-terrorism work, as well as looks after the well-being of millions of our citizens who work in those countries. This is a very high-stake relationship for India. You don't go around insulting something that those people simply cannot stand. It's a commonsensical thing. Any of the Indians of any faith working in those countries would have told you that. Any Indian diplomat posted in those countries would have told you that. But these tone-deaf rhetoricians of political parties, and one particular political party, to put it very bluntly, don't seem to have appreciated what's at stake. They feel that they can say anything they like because they get a free pass from the authorities in this country. And to that degree, our government is culpable in not cracking the whip much sooner.
You know, I want to repeat to our audience, unfortunately, the BJP has been unwilling to speak out and come on the program and defend its position on the show. But in conclusion, Dr. Tharoor, going ahead, do you believe that this is in a way a turning point, a message to all the hate mongers, whichever side of the divide they may be, whichever community they may belong to, that while you may get traction within India at times for some of the remarks you made, while your videos may go viral, while television channels may get TRPs from some of these hate videos, at the end of the day, we need to recognize that there is a world beyond winning an election or two in this country, or winning a TRP war or getting more clickbaits.
Absolutely right. We have to understand there are very big things at stake. We have
we have a role in the world as a serious player, and we have interests in the world that actually affect the well-being of our citizens and our country. Not just the citizens working there. Energy security and geopolitical security and terrorism are important to us living in this country. And therefore, it's extremely important that due sensitivity be shown. It's been very clear to many of us that our hate speech and our political rhetoric has gone beyond anything that's acceptable. Since we're on India Today, I wrote a piece in the India Today magazine just a few weeks ago called The Toxin of Hate, where I talked about incident after incident I'd come across, which was damaging India and damaging Indians, changing our image in some ways irreversibly, and which is entirely because of the political poison injected into our society. For God's sake, let this be a wake-up call to stop this nonsense. Let's get back to being the India we always were. Let us celebrate togetherness. Let us celebrate coexistence. Let us not waste ourselves and our futures in this kind of absolutely negative talk.
Well, since you've written also why I'm a Hindu, let me also ask you this. There will be those today who will say, look, Hinduism by its nature is tolerant and accommodative. There has been a tendency to pander to Islamists in this country, and therefore there's a sense of Hindu grievance, anger pent up. When someone, for example, puts out a tweet of the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, likens it to a shivling, then Hindus do not erupt in anger, but Islamists react in anger. How would you respond to that? Do you believe, in a sense, there is an argument to be made there?
Listen, condemning communalism as I do applies to communalism of all faiths. I have as little patience for fanatics of Islam or any other religion as I do for fanatics and extremists of my own religion. I believe that these people, when they claim to be speaking for Hinduism, are doing a disservice to the Hinduism I knew and grew up in and that I'm proud to practice. I believe in Swami Vivekananda's understanding that Hinduism teaches us all the acceptance of difference, much more than tolerance. We accept the differences we have with others and others have with us. That is our great strength. These people are betraying Hinduism in the name of Hindutva, and they need to stop. They need to realize that ultimately Hinduism and India are both much larger than their petty, politically motivated mindsets.
Okay. Let me leave it there, Dr. Tharoor. As always, a pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much. I see you don't have a fringe cut of a kind that I had, so you're very much part of the mainstream. I probably, with my new fringe cut, am looking more like the fringe. Thanks very much, though, for joining me here on the News Today.
No fringe elements on your shows, Rajdeep.
I'm afraid so.
Thank you very much.
I sometimes ask myself, who now really is the fringe in this country? Well, all of this, we can sit in the studio and pontificate. The truth is, how does this play out on the ground? The example of this is Kanpur, which has been on the boil over the last few days after Nupur Sharma's remarks on the Prophet. The alleged mastermind, Zafar Hayat Hashmi, behind the violence has been held along with at least 38 others. WhatsApp chat suggests that there was a planning for the protests in Kanpur. But the fact is that what happens in a studio has repercussions on the ground. Take a look.
Stone pelting and gunshots. Uttar Pradesh's Kanpur witnessed massive riots on Friday over BJP leader Nupur Sharma's remarks on Prophet Muhammad during a TV debate. The police used tear gas to disperse the angry mob that had taken over this street. A bandh was called by Zafar Hayat Hashmi, president of the Johar Ali Fans Foundation, which turned violent. 38 rioters, including the alleged mastermind Zafar Hayat Hashmi, are now in police custody.
So far we have arrested 38 people as of now, and arrest will increase. 6 teams are working on it. We are trying to identify each and everyone who are involved in this incident, and whenever new arrest will come, we will inform.
India Today has accessed WhatsApp chats of Zafar Hayat Hashmi, which allegedly point to elaborate planning for this riot. The WhatsApp group Johar Ali Fans Association Kanpur team was allegedly used to assemble the mob which went on this rampage. The group was allegedly being updated with fresh images and videos of how the mob was enforcing Bandh and attacking the police. In transcripts available with India Today, Zafar Hayat Hashmi is seen praising the protesters who enforced this Bandh in Kanpur. Probe agencies claim the riots are linked to radical Islamist outfit Popular Front of India or PFI.
PFI के कनेक्शन से कोई संभावना से इनकार नहीं किया जा सकता। कुछ हमको क्लूज मिले हैं। अब एक बार स्पेशल इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग टीम पूरी जांच कर ले, उसके बाद इस पर टिप्पणी करना उचित होगा।
ट्रांजैक्शन मिले हैं कुछ पीएफआई से जुड़े हुए कुछ लोगों के दस्तावेज?
नहीं, ट्रांजैक्शन अभी हम देख नहीं पाए। अब रिमांड पे लेके आने वाले दिनों में ट्रांजैक्शंस और हम चेक करेंगे और फिर आपको कंक्लूसिवली बताएंगे।
कुछ दस्तावेज मिले हैं?
हाँ, कुछ पेपर्स मिले हैं।
The riots in Kanpur have sparked a political face-off.
हम चिन्हित कर रहे हैं और जो भी गड़बड़ी फैलाए हैं, जिन्होंने कानून तोड़ा, उनके खिलाफ कड़ी कार्रवाई होगी। कानपुर वाले मामले में कोई भी कंप्रोमाइज नहीं होने वाला है। जो भी है उसको कड़ी कार्रवाई होगी।
शासन प्रशासन दोनों ये चाहता है कि मुसलमानों को सड़क पर लाएं, उसके बाद उनके खिलाफ कार्रवाई करें और फिर एक बार 2024 के चुनाव के लिए ये दिखाएं कि हम मुसलमानों को देखिए कितना परेशान कर सकते हैं। तो ये पूरी भारतीय जनता पार्टी की बिछाई हुई बिसात थी जिसमें गरीब जनता कानपुर की मर रही है।
The Kanpur police have registered 4 FIRs against more than 1,000 unknown persons. 16 social media handles are on the police radar for allegedly instigating this violence. The UP police has also decided to put up hoardings carrying pictures of the key suspects involved in the rioting. With Santosh Kumar Sharma in Kanpur, Bureau Report, India Today.
I have said this before, I will say it again. If we encourage hate speech sometimes on television shows, it will have an impact on the ground. Will a riot be sparked off at times by the hate speech that lies unchecked in TV studios? We cannot profit from hate. Think about it. Let's take a break. On the other side is our Good News Today story. It's a story that you must see. We might have a biodegradable alternate for polythene. We'll tell you more on the other side. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Everyone's busy finding what's trending. You're busy finding out why. India Today for those who research before reacting. Download the India Today app now. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171.
Let's turn to tonight's Get Real India story. A 22-year-old man was allegedly tortured in police custody in Uttar Pradesh. What exactly happened and what is the finding from this report? Let's take a look at a case that has been filed against 5 police personnel. It's our special report.
"22-year-old Rehan Shah was allegedly given third degree at a police station in Uttar Pradesh's Badaयूं. He was accused of bike theft. Rehan Shah's family has now alleged that police severely thrashed him, gave him electric shock and pushed a plastic pipe through his rectum. The police allegedly took a bribe of 5,000 rupees in exchange for releasing Rehan. A case has been registered against 7 police personnel now.
तत्कालीन चौकी इंचार्ज ककराला और 4 आरक्षी विरुद्ध रेलेवेंट सेक्शंस में और इसका विभागीय कार्रवाई का आदेश भी परिष्कृत अधीक्षक महोदय द्वारा दिया गया है। बाकी विवेचनात्मक कार्रवाई थाना स्तर पर की जा रही है।
The incident has once again reignited the debate on the misuse of police powers. With Ankur Chaturvedi, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's turn from there to our good news story. That story should trouble us. This story should help us feel better. Uttarakhand's Pantnagar University has developed a more eco-friendly and sustainable alternative to polythene. Take a look.
The search for a viable replacement for polythene is yet to bear fruit. Now researchers at the Pantnagar Agricultural University have developed a biodegradable material from paddy husk. They claim the product can be an alternative to polythene. It took Professor P.K. Omre and his research student Sheba Malik 3 years to create the polylactic acid-based sheet.
जो धान की भूसी होती है उसको रिफाइंड करके और इसको इन्फ्यूज करके इस तरह की फिल्म बना रहे हैं जो कि बायोडिग्रेडेबल फिल्म है जो पॉलीथीन को रिप्लेस करती है। इसका एडवांटेज ये है कि ये फिल्म सॉइल में आराम से डाइजेस्ट हो जाती है बहुत ही जल्दी और इसको फूड मटेरियल में इस फिल्म को उपयोग कर सकते हैं। जो इसके बना सकते हैं, बैग बना सकते हैं सील करके चारों तरफ से, तो इस तरह से हम इसके फूड प्रोडक्ट इसमें रख सकते हैं।
The researchers say this material gets destroyed in 3 to 6 months after coming in contact with the soil.
और इनमें एंटीऑक्सीडेंट कैपेसिटी होगी जिससे कि हम फ्रूट्स एंड वेजिटेबल्स इसमें स्टोर करके हम ये देखेंगे कि हम इससे इसकी शेल्फ लाइफ किसी भी फ्रूट्स और वेजिटेबल्स की कितनी इंक्रीज कर सकते हैं।
India is a major rice producing country. Most of the husk is either burnt or thrown away. This discovery can put the wasteful residue to good use. Bureau Report, India Today.
Our image of the day comes from Paris. He is the king of clay and once again stood tall in his kingdom. Rafael Nadal cementing his legacy by clinching the French Open for a record 14th time. I ask this question as I leave you tonight. Is this the greatest ever individual achievement in any sport? Winning 14 Grand Slam titles on one surface. There is only one Rafael Nadal. He is the ultimate maestro of the red clay. Thanks for watching. You stay well. Stay safe. Good night. Goodbye. Jai Hind. Shubhratri.
Ever seen and ever will see. A 22nd Grand Slam title. As he breaks even more records, becomes the oldest ever men's singles champion at Roland Garros, and did it in emphatic.
اول ما نزلت العالم شفت جيراني يلعبوا في واحد تزلج، فكانت في راسي بعدها بعمل بورد قاعد اشوف اتفرج عليه فيديوهات نتعلم نضبط اسم الحركات.
job is to design skate parks, and here I've designed a skate park in collaboration with the locals and an organisation called Make Life Skate Life, and we've turned that design into reality because here we are at Libya's first skate park.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
A vast array of solar panels float in northeast Thailand, symbolizing their drive towards clean energy as it seeks carbon neutrality by 2050. Let's look at how solar panels work.